Welcome, Chana, to Be Bold Now. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. I'd love you to share a bit about yourself, where you are today, and who or what inspired you to become a cultural entrepreneur.
I'm so happy to be here today and share a little bit of my story. Um, I think it actually who inspires me to become a cultural entrepreneur or use that language is actually someone not at all in my field. It's Quincy Delight Jones, the legendary Quincy Jones. He is 87 years old and has spent the past 6 or 7 decades making his mark on culture. So, in music and film and television, he's a record producer and author and composer and film producer. And so he really has his name actually. I was actually just thinking about this earlier today. His name, Delight, having that be his middle name almost was like a foreshadowing of the work that he would do in his life, which has been all around delighting other human beings through his cultural production. And I like that there is a through line in all of the work that you can see, and that it's a quintessential Quincy.
Okay.
And I aim to do the same thing in the work that I do as I look at entrepreneurship. How do I create a through line from one organization, one product to the next, so that when people look at it, it feels like it's quintessentially Chana, it's quintessentially bold, and it's quintessentially culture first.
Wow, I love Quincy Jones and I love his music. You are the CEO and founder of Genie, a community-centered marketplace of culture-first brands. What does it mean to be culture-first?
So, culture first really is all about this idea of using culture as a lens for action. So, thinking that in our particular case, we're looking at shopping, but really it's like thinking about all the actions that you take in society and how does that track up to moving society and culture forward. So, in our instance with Genie, we are creating a culture first beauty marketplace, and our stated goal is to rewrite the narrative to be more inclusive and intersectional and to create beauty for us. So, in beauty, there has been a traditional narrative around who's beautiful, who's centered, is typically white folks, white women in particular, thin people in particular, able bodied people specifically, so, and cisgender folks, right? So, there's a specific sort of beauty archetype that we've seen in magazines over the years. And what that does to other folks, other human beings, is that it makes them feel like, well, perhaps I'm not beautiful, or I'm only beautiful if I look like the people that I see in the magazines, or if I look like the influencers that I see across my feed on Instagram. So in our work, where we're thinking about how do you sell products that have the intent to move this narrative forward and beyond the constraints of what has been done before. So, beyond the gender binary, beyond what we know about what's beautiful around size, beyond what we know about what's beautiful around race and um, skin complexion, and how do we front the people who are in these different communities? How do we bring them together and center those folks, and also share brands that are from those communities too? So on our marketplace, when you go to our shop, you're going to be able to find people who look just like you, who have the same similar stories and also had similar problems and decided to build brands with people that they can relate to in mind, and therefore creating a community that is intent on moving society and moving culture forward.
I really love that. That's really about shopping our values. I've read your brilliant book, An ABC of Equality. Tell us, why did this book need to be written?
Yeah, that's a big question, Nikki. Thanks for asking. So, an ABC of Equality needed to be written because, as adults, we think about these heavy terms. We think about racism, we think about sexism, classism, all of these issues, these challenges, systemic oppressions that we all have encountered throughout our daily lives as an adult, so over the course of growing up, what happens is that they become these big ideas and they become these intractable challenges, right? And so I thought it was be a great exercise to really simplify these terms into bite-sized content that we could relearn as adults, but also that you can start important conversations with children. So children don't have the wisdom of having encountered, say, racism, right? Like they don't necessarily understand race as a social construct that it is in the same way that adults may understand it. But as soon as they're coming to the world, they are encountering difference. They are being categorized by the families that they live in, the societies and cultures that they are a part of, and then when they get into schools, they see difference all around them. So they sometimes they're asking harmless questions out of curiosity and what they're seeing, and as adults we might get stunted because of our experience with that issue that they're bringing to the forefront. So the book just enables you to have a starting place to start the conversation. It's by no means exhaustive, and it also doesn't attempt to be the whole story of a category of social justice. It just really is a way for you to have those easy have an easier entry point and conversation with young people, but also perhaps pick up a new nugget for yourself and thinking about social justice.
Thank you, Chana, for writing this important book. It's such a helpful way to introduce identity and social justice to children. Every family should have a copy. So finally, I have to ask you, you've made so many bold moves in your life. What advice would you give to women and their allies who are thinking about taking some bold steps of their own?
Yes, I would say that what a few bold steps that I would like to say. One I'm going to start with my favorite phrase, which is "get on your own side." Um, Oftentimes when you're a creative or if you're an entrepreneur and you're mission oriented and you have things that you want to see done in the world, you can be so focused on that mission, so focused on that vision, so focused on the team and all the different things that you need to do to bring together in order to see that vision come to life, and you leave yourself out of the picture. You may not take care of yourself in the ways that you need to. You may not actually create a salary for yourself. It's something as simple as that. Or you may your self care, your health, your exercise, your meditation. All these things might go to the wayside because you're so focused on the work and you're focused on, and maybe even if you're not focused on the work, perhaps you're focused on your family and your children and the communities around you. But it's really important, excuse me, that we center ourselves in these and experiences of our life. And so that's my phrase that I say to myself often, to just bring myself back to the here and now and to center myself in my own body, is just to get on my own side. And the other thing that I would say is that, you know every human being is both oppressed and also an oppressor in some way or another, right? And what that means is that, like, myself right now, actually, and I'm going to quote someone. I'm going to do a terrible job of quoting her, but Rachel Ricketts, who is an anti-racism activist and writer and just incredible thought leader. She had this really concise way of putting this recently, which is that, like, you know, there are ways in which you have power, and there are ways in which you have privilege, and there are ways in which that someone else's power and privilege are impacting your life. So, for instance, with myself, as a Black, cisgender, able-bodied human being, I have, there are ways in which I am oppressed and um, marginalized in society, if you will, and there are ways in which I stand in privilege, and that has to do with not having the experience of being disabled in the world, for instance, or not having the experience of, you know, having the experience of being cisgender versus trans in the world. And so wherever you have power and privilege, it is your responsibility to unpack it, to and to, quite frankly, to shut it down. So if we're thinking about white folks in particular, you know, it is the responsibility of white folks to think about how they can unpack racism and how to get rid of, finally, white supremacy. Because from that vantage point, you can unpack and get rid of that oppression. So it's a great way of looking at, you know, where do your identities place you in society, and therefore from that point of view, how can you use that positioning, that positionality, to support others, to remove barriers, to remove injustice.
Thank you, Chana. Two lessons that we took away there. One, get on your own side. And then two, use your power and privilege to support others. Thank you so much for all that you are doing to support women.